All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another week of open office hours. My name is John. It is November the 29th. The year is 2020, and I'm here with you again this week to take your questions, engage in some conversation, hear your rants, anything career related. I'm here for you. And the reason I've been doing this for the last several weeks is obviously it's been a tough year, and I've had a chance to talk to lots of job seekers or potential job seekers out there. And I thought this could be another good platform for us to kind of connect and to make some impact. So if you're joining us today on the live stream, hit me up in the chat. Let me know that you're there. And I invite you at any time, if you've got any questions, to either hit me on the chat or better yet, join me on the Zoom call. The details for the Zoom session that I'm on today with you is in the description below. So just go there. You'll find the meeting ID and the password. And I'd love nothing more than to have a one-on-one conversation. So let's get into it. Usually how I like to start, and we'll be online for the next 30 minutes to maybe 45 minutes, depending on where we go with the show today. To start with some headlines of the week. And there's one big one that I want to address today that I went on a little bit of a rant on my LinkedIn earlier this week. And I thought I'd just repeat that for the wider audience today. And it's around internships, right? Internships. So I've kind of posted in the chat right now the link to the article that I'm referring to. So the article was earlier this week. I think it was Wednesday in the Straits Times, the major newspaper here in Singapore where I'm based. It was talking about these new measures that the Monetary Authority of Singapore, basically the central bank of Singapore, was putting in place to help stoke and fuel job creation, especially when it comes to young people, fresh undergraduates coming out of school for the first time in the financial services sector, which obviously is an industry that's pretty much a bedrock of the economy here in Singapore, right? Without financial services, we'd be in big trouble. So the government's trying to do whatever they can to stabilize that, and B, help it grow, because there are many areas of growth within financial services that's happening here in Singapore. So I guess my big beef with this was just looking at some of the details of this new program, these measures that the government had put in place. They were trying to get some credit for, and just kind of lamenting yet again that young talent here in Singapore, especially fresh graduates, get such a bum rap. I don't know what you think, right? What your experiences may be, but I just feel like young people here get so exploited. It's embarrassing, and people complain about young people being really entitled and not being able to do much. And the funny thing is, just I think the people that say that sometimes have forgotten. Well, not sometimes. I mean, most of the time have forgotten what it was like when they were back in these students' shoes, when they were first coming out of school, and what that environment was like. So I'll tell you, the environment today, I think, when you come out of school, especially as a fresh undergraduate, versus what it was like for you 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, if that was the case, very different than it is today, especially in this part of the world. And I think, it's unfortunate because obviously, the young talent here in Singapore are more highly educated than ever before. There are more people going to university than ever before. But unfortunately, that's the book smarts, not necessarily the street smarts. And obviously, anybody who's been to university realizes that once you engage into the real world, especially the commercial, private sector, there's a big mismatch between knowledge that you learned at school versus the knowledge that you need at the workplace, right? There's always this kind of gap, right? And the real challenge is how quickly you can close that gap to become more productive for the employer that's paying you. But I just feel like today, the expectations from young people and the willingness of employers to kind of do their part, like the gap is so wide. Right? The young people think they know stuff, but actually they don't do anything, and they kind of just sit there and wait. And then the employers, half the time, I think, are just kind of complaining, like, why are these fresh grads so crappy, and how come they're not more educated, and how come they're so, entitled and want this and not willing to do this, right? They call, the current generation strawberries, so easily bruised, can't take, tough feedback, all this kind of stuff. And it just lends to a vicious cycle where nothing is happening. And I just think there are so many better models out there that we can look at in terms of how to develop early talent, nurture them, and make them into very productive employees in a very short period of time. Yet the game in Singapore, and I've been living here now almost 15 years, has barely moved. The needle has barely moved, and the complaining, which is a national pastime here in Singapore, just continues to be high. Right. So some of the highlights of this article, if you haven't opened it yet, one thing I had a big problem with just the financial support, right, which is a big part. Singapore doesn't have a lot of natural resources, unlike other countries like my home country, the country of Canada, right? We don't have a lot of natural resources, but we got a lot of cash. That's one thing we definitely do, a ton of cash, right? So if there's anything that we're fortunate is we can throw some cash to the problem. And I feel like this is another one of those, just throwing cash at a problem that's much more complex. But the bigger challenge isn't just throwing cash, it's about how much cash we're throwing. And the amount of cash just seems like a slap in the face. So these new measures that MAS is supporting says that they're going to support internships for young people at a maximum clip of 80% of the internship salary, with a total cap of 1,000. So 80% of your salary at a max 1,000. So if you do the math, 100% of that would be $1,250 a month, $1,250. That would be what the maximum the government is thinking. And obviously, there's going to be some people that pay more, some people pay less. But the reality is this is pretty low. I mean, generally, if you're thinking $1,250 is the number, the market rate that you're working at, and you don't want to pay 100%, you want employers to have some skin in the game. So I'm okay with the 80%. Move. I think that's a good move, right? I'm not going to support the whole thing. I'm going to give you something here, but when you tell me it's $1,000 is the max, and you value it then at $1,250, I'm kind of like, what is that? $1,250, right? I mean, think about that. So if it's $1,250, and we look at 4, maybe 5 weeks, right? So let's use 4 for easy math. $1,250, 4 weeks a month. So that's like $300 a week. You're paying these guys, right? And if you use 5 days of work, what are we looking at there? It's just embarrassing, right? So when you look at that, like less than $100 a day for these guys, what signal are you sending to young people to say, hey, as an intern, right, someone who's eventually going to join our ranks, yeah, we value you. We want you to come in. We want you to grow. We're going to teach you some stuff, and hopefully you can hit the ground running here. But, in terms of monetary, it's less than $100 a day, right? Yeah. I mean, to me, there's a big, big disconnect. And the real challenge, if you ask me, if you dig a little bit deeper on the root problem here, isn't necessarily the fact that the young people have no experience. I mean, that's the argument the employers usually make. Well, I mean, why would I pay these guys more? They don't know anything. Yeah, they got some, book smarts, but like you said, book smarts and street smarts are very different, John, right? They don't know anything. We gotta take massive risks. But what types of jobs are you getting these guys to do? Are you setting up these interns for jobs that are way above their pay grade that someone 5 years of experience should probably be doing? Or are you designing the jobs that they should be working on as an intern at a level that would be fairly close to, if they were to join full-time, they would probably be doing something similar, right? Because when you hire fresh graduates, who have no work experience but have the degree finally, the piece of paper, again, what are the roles those guys would do? I would think interns would do roles similar to those guys, And given if that was the way you designed it, then the gap between skills and experiences should be really relatively small. Especially if you're a picky employer, right? I'm not talking about you taking a first-year university undergraduate intern, right? No employer in Singapore is going to take a risk on a first year, which is a shame. They all want third-year students or final-year students. So again, what's the difference between a student that's about to graduate versus someone who just graduated 1 year out? Do you think they're going to have that much more skills and experiences? Yet the pay differential, right, is, I don't know, $1,250 for the intern, and the average salary these days, I mean, using round numbers, you can look it up. There's something called the Graduate Employment Survey that the Ministry of Education forces all the universities to do. But that's around, depending on this program of study industry, on average like $3,000, right? So you're valuing these guys at less, than half of what a full-timer would do. So again, what kind of signal are you sending? And how do you expect these guys to work at this? And the one that really gets me the most on this article is this program is specific for the financial services industry, one of the richest industries out there. Not only do they make some of the most amount of money in terms of top line revenue, right? And they are a big employer, I'll give you that. Yeah. But what's another, I don't know, yeah, $500 a month to them? I mean, in the big picture, that's nothing. Yet the salaries are where they are. And again, it's not really the number that I'm most pissed off about. For me, the big issue is just what that perception is. If you realize these interns get paid so little, as an employer, and you're thinking about how to use these guys, are you going to treat them as some person that you should probably invest and spend some time? Because if you were paying them a lot more, you'd be like, damn, okay, you know what? I better invest a little bit to get them going here, because we are paying them a little bit, and I don't want that money just to go down the toilet. But at $12.50 a week, you're pretty much like, $12.50 a month, right? That's money that's probably like, who cares? Rounding error, go down the toilet. Yeah, I don't necessarily. Let's just see what they can do. Give them a little project and see what happens on the side. And to me, that's where the whole problem breaks down. Starting with the pay. If we just realize that young people can deliver, even though they don't have the skills and experience, they can deliver if the jobs are designed right, with the right support, the right environment around them, and you give them some incentive, aka you value them. You tell them, hey, we think you're a pretty valuable part of the team. You're not a full-timer yet, but you're pretty close. You're pretty much like these fresh grads, so let me pay you, maybe 75% of what a fresh grad is getting, which would be, I don't know, probably double the rates today. How do you think that would change the mindset of that young student? Do you think they would be hungrier? Do you think they would maybe do a little bit extra to prove that they're worth, that extra cash? I don't know. I know it's been some time since I came out of school, but I don't think, if you just think about what it was like when you came out of school and had some empathy, that my line of thinking isn't so crazy, right? I mean, if I think about what it was like when I was coming out of school, even before that, during my internships, and I had a chance to do many internships before I graduated, I went into roles in companies that I didn't do much at all. I didn't know much at all, right? One of the most exciting and different ones I did was I worked for Sony Music Canada when I was just starting third year university. And the reason I joined these guys at Sony Music is this was like 1999, so now I'm dating myself a little bit. MP3s were just all the rage, right? Britney Spears was just hitting the airwaves and going, just blowing up. She was just getting started. I remember those days. And so Sony Music in Canada was starting to flirt with the idea of building an online store. Right? An online store where they would sell MP3s of their artists. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, back then it was always just CDs, and occasionally you could buy singles, which was kind of a weird concept, but it was mostly CDs. And now we were moving into the digital space back then. So I was like, I want to be a part of this. But I knew nothing about e-commerce. I had never built an online store before. I had some MP3s that I probably bootlegged at the time, right? But my boss ended up hiring me because of my interest. I was big into music. I just showed a lot of enthusiasm. And I said, look, I've been in other situations where I haven't known stuff and I can learn. And he, saw something in me, I guess, and he gave me that chance. And then I had to figure it all out. So I don't know what's changed in the last, 20 years, right? Now I sound old by saying that. Why the expectations have changed and why employers have a totally different mindset. But if you expected people to already have what it is and not willing to guide and provide some support and mentorship, especially at this age, I mean, hello. Even full-time resources, they never, hardly ever come ready to hit the ground on the first day. Even if you're hiring a guy who's done the job before, it's from a different, place. There's different terminology. The culture might be different when they walk through your doors. So don't you have to do something there? Shouldn't you show them the ropes? Or you're just going to let the guy figure it out themselves, throw them into the deep end and then see, which seems to be the case a lot. Now, people might say, but companies have, a lot of these banks have these structured internship programs. They have all this support that you're talking about, John. We've got, some mentors that they get assigned to, and there's some training programs, all that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about all that formal stuff, right? Yeah. That's nice. You want to get some support. Yeah, you get to go meet. Maybe the CEO has a little lunchtime session with you guys, and you have other people coming around to meet you and tell you how, great the firm is, to brainwash you, and hopefully you come back. I'm talking about the actual work. Your boss, your hiring manager sitting with you. Are they sitting down with you? How many hours a week is the boss of this intern sitting down next to the intern and working together with them? I want to know. So if you're on the live stream right now, right, or you're watching this a little bit later, hit it up in the chat. Yeah? If you've been a recent intern in the last couple of years, I want to know how many hours a week does your boss sit down with you one-on-one? The meetings don't count. Group meetings don't count, right? Yeah, team meetings don't count. I'm talking one-on-one with you to kind of work with you, right? To teach you some stuff. Yeah? I'm very curious what that number is. My hypothesis, it's going to be pretty damn low, right? Pretty damn low. So what are you expecting? What are you expecting from these guys? And that's why I'm really concerned. Because this whole program that the Monetary Authority is putting in here is to, quote, develop job-ready graduates and build a Singaporean talent pipeline. Yeah? Look, opportunity is one thing. It's the start. I get that. So by throwing some money and maybe creating internships that weren't necessarily going to be there because maybe these guys didn't have the cash to do it, maybe. But again, we're talking financial services, right? They don't have the cash. I mean, if these guys don't have the cash, we got a whole different set of problems. In other industries, I'm a little more open-minded. Maybe those guys aren't used to doing it. They don't normally think about this, and they don't want to waste the cash on this. So you want to incentivize them? Fine. But the banks? You got to be kidding me, right? Yeah? They need to be subsidized? But okay, you need jobs. You want good jobs. That term is mentioned quite a few times in the article, that we want to create good jobs. Well, what is a good job? I'm curious. How does the government view a good job here in Singapore? How does the average Singaporean view a good job? And I just think, when you start at the beginning, right? If you do keep talking about good jobs and you set these expectations in young people's minds, then are you kind of surprised that they come with all these extra demands and entitlements when you keep talking about good job, good job, good job, right? And that's part of my beef. This whole article and this scheme, which again isn't in a lot of detail because this is just a news article. I'm sure there's more specifics behind it somewhere else in another paper, right? But the stuff that gets parroted in the headlines, to me, doesn't sound like it's going to help at all. If anything, yeah, it just reinforces the mentality that interns are cheap, yeah, young people that don't know anything, yeah, and should just be grateful of the opportunity, right? And we're going to do our part, so we're going to hire some young guys. Okay, I'm excited because we have someone about to join the Zoom live call here. Let me let him in. Oh, he's disappeared. Hey, come back. Come back on the thing. I was waiting to admit you. All right. Okay, we'll let him come back. I think I know who it is. I had a quick glance at the name, right? Yeah, if you were just trying to join the Zoom, hit me up again. I just was about to press the admit button and then you ran away. Okay? So come join me back. Anything else I want to say on that article? Again, if you're watching on the chat here, drop me a line, right? And again, if you want to come and chat with me one-on-one, yeah, live, just join the Zoom. As I think there was this gentleman who was about to do it, right? Don't be shy. I'll just bring you back. I just have to hold you in the waiting room one at a time. Just a couple other things. Some facts and figures that were in the article that might be interesting here. So this program that's going to go for the next 6 months from January to July of 2021, they're hoping to create 1,800 new jobs, 2,000 traineeships, which is kind of like a little more hardcore version of internships. And the biggest function of these jobs is in the tech part of the banks, right? They estimate about 880 roles are going to come specifically out of the tech related functions here, which is quite a bit. And interestingly, stats from this past year in financial services, in the first half of 2020, the financial service industry in Singapore created 1,900 net new jobs, right? So obviously some jobs got lost, some jobs got created. So net 1,900 new jobs. But of the 1,900, 60% of these jobs were looking for experienced or hires or specialists. So I think, again, part of this program that the government is trying to introduce is saying, hey, employers, I know you always want the guy who comes with experience, right? And you keep telling they're not qualified, but you need to be a little more open-minded. And again, think about potentially training people into these roles, because we don't necessarily, it's not easy to find all this kind of experience. But I would say something even more bold. I'd be like, do you really need the experience? Everybody wants it, right? A hiring manager wants it because it's the least risky move, right? If someone's already been doing the job and you're just looking to their resume on paper, then that's an obvious one of why you want to pick them. But how many times does that actually work out? I would tell you there's a lot of risk in taking someone who just looks good on paper. Because again, they come in with different expectations. You don't necessarily give them the same support. And sometimes you get blinded by that and you forget that actually sometimes, right, at the office place, especially if you're in a team, right, the actual day-to-day skills, small part. Yeah, your personality, your attitude, the chemistry that you have with the others in the team, with the boss, those things, right, are more important. And we always say this to workers, right? It's not your company necessarily, right, that makes, the company and the mission and vision of the company that really determines your success and happiness on a daily basis. It's usually your boss. Your immediate boss and your coworkers, I would suggest, probably have the most impact on your day-to-day happiness or misery at the workplace, right? People don't leave companies, people leave bosses. But as a boss, I'm sometimes wondering whether you think about that from your perspective, right? Again, at the end of the day, if you're a boss and you've got a team, don't you think the attitude, the mindset, the personality, the chemistry you have with your workers is probably more important than the skills and the experiences? All right? And wouldn't you sometimes want to trade off a little bit? Right? I'm not saying completely trade off, oh, no experience, but you're a good guy, so therefore I'm going to take you. Well, at these young levels, hell yeah. But the more experienced levels, I mean, sometimes maybe instead of the 10 things you want, maybe the person has 3 important things you want, and then the rest you can kind of grow, but you really feel they can fit in. The other teammates have met them and they like this person. Wouldn't that be more valuable and lead to potentially less headaches for you versus the person who comes super skilled with super amount of experience? I just find that just boggling that sometimes we forget, to think about those things. I think sometimes, unfortunately, especially in financial services where it's always rush, 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 go, 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 do, do, do. Never think, plan, execute. Can we be more efficient? What kind of shortcuts we take? No, it's just like keep going at it all the time. And now we even have terms to justify this. We call it like agile. It's all about the agile. Let's go. Daily stand-ups. Let's do our scrum meetings. All this kind of stuff. Just go, 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 right? Yeah. That sometimes we just forget to take a big step back and realize, what really is important on a day-to-day basis. So again, if you're on the chat, right, you're watching the stream, hit me up. Let me know what you think, right? Whoever was trying to join me here on Zoom, I'm waiting for you. Come back. Yeah, I'd love to chat one-on-one. All right, and again, if you're watching, the Zoom meeting details is in the YouTube description below, so just find that link, come on. You'll just sit in my waiting room for a little bit while I see you, and then I'll admit you, and then we can chat one-on-one, okay? And again, I'd love to hear whatever experiences you might have as a past intern, a current intern, or even, someone who employed interns. Okay, I've been able to coax my guest back with me. Sir, welcome. My guest back with me. There's a bit of delay I can hear. Sir, welcome. How you doing?
Hi, John.
There you are, my man.
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing good. What's going on?
No, just last week just finished some of the video interviews. Yeah,
Okay.
so applying for the summer associate. Yeah, just want to seek for your not advice, just a perspective.
Yeah. So
How
give me a little more background, right? So you've been doing a lot of video interviews for companies. What types of companies?
I think one of them is the uh, masterclass. Yeah,
Okay.
one is for JP Morgan, and then basically I just apply to understand what's the flow. I think because of COVID, I think there's not. I think most of the MNC companies, especially US companies, they want to automate it. So I think there's a lot of video interviews. So,
Yes.
yeah, and
Okay.
just that's one of the perspective is that I think when I first tried, yeah, I think they use different platforms, but you can train yourself, but you know because you're facing a human it's more to like chatting with a human, but this one is a video, you're recording a video. So I'm not sure what's the perspective to put it. Is it you treat it like as a person to chat with it, or you just like telling a story to them?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good question, and I'm glad you're bringing it up today because I think COVID just accelerated the adoption of these platforms, but actually many of these platforms were there before. Like in 2019, they were seeing a little more popularity. The ones that are really on the bleeding edge had some of the stuff back in 2018 as well, but certainly 2020, you're seeing a lot of these guys do this stuff, right? But frankly speaking, does the video change anything in the process, right? I would tell you again, knowing some of the firms that do these things, right? You mentioned that video is part of the automation process, but it's not like these video interviews are then scored by some AI machine where they then give some sort of scoring and saying, hey, okay, this guy, his videos is a score of 8 out of 10 or whatever percentages and so on and so on, then we do that. There's still a human being that watches all those videos. So all we've really done is replace maybe the flat version of you. I call it the 2D version of you, which is the paste resume, and brought in a 3D version of you. So I see the video platforms these days as just kind of like enriching the data and giving a little more data and bringing the candidate to life a bit more. But even then, there's still a lot of challenges, right? It's awkward, right? Some people are really well rehearsed. Some people are stiff as a board. It doesn't necessarily do the true inflection. But from what I've been told, having asked some of the employers that use this kind of thing, they still feel like, again, given the costs maybe and where they want to go, and maybe eventually we'll start doing things like some sort of, I don't know, AI machine that will analyze your speech patterns and do the image processing and give actual scores. So this is maybe just a precursor. It still brings you to life, and that data perhaps can reduce the next step. Because the next step usually would be, we see you on paper, we like you, we want to bring you in. So let's do like a 10-15 minute phone call to make sure you're legit. Before I waste a hiring manager's time and have them meet with you, HR will go and do a 10-minute call. But if I've already seen you live, so to speak, right, in living color in some sort of 3D format and you talking, I can gauge a bit of your English language skills, for example. I can gauge a little bit of like, your presentation, for example, and a little bit of the storytelling. You're right. Yeah. So that's kind of like the theory of it a little bit here. In terms of the candidates, I mean, look, the way I look at it is if at the end of the day, there's still a human that's going to be watching all these videos, what do you think they're going to like? Right? Because it's really about likability. It's not about necessarily getting the job. There's nothing in your 1 minute or whatever the time limit they give you, 30 seconds, 1 minute. What's the time limit around there?
Yeah, there's a time, two
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah. Two
Yeah,
minutes is the max, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's nothing that you can do that 2 minutes is going to make the person go, this guy's so awesome. Let's just give him the job, right? Let's just go right to the offer. It's really just another platform to get you alive face to face with somebody, right? So, knowing that a human being is watching that and you want them to like you, right? What are the factors that go into likability? And let's start with basic social psychology. All right. I like you because you're like me. That's the start point, right? Humans connect with people that are like them. So if you want to be one of them, you got to be like them. You got to sound like them. You got to dress like them. You got to talk like them. You got to have stories, experiences, rant the same way like them, right? Because if you do that, when I look at you, Yeah, consciously and subconsciously, I'll be like, this guy sounds like us. He even looks like us. Look at that thing he's got there. He's got his hair the right way. He's wearing the same brand of glasses that we do. Oh, man, this guy's okay. You know what? And boom, let's bring him in. So that's the starting point, the macro. Right? But when we go into the actual content, I think storytelling is the way to go. I'm heavily biased on that, obviously. But I think storytelling works better because everybody else, not everybody else, but probably at least half the candidates will be probably a stiff statement, right? There'll be some sort of prepared statement that they'll read off a sheet. There's lots of ways to hack it these days. You can have the sheet like literally next to you to the camera behind you to read,
Correct.
right? Yeah, or if you're hardcore, you can buy a teleprompter and like read. But again, unless you're doing this every day for a living, and that's part of the reason I'm doing the live stream, to practice what it's like to talk to myself in front of a camera. Because, the first time we met, I was talking to you, there was some liveness to that, right? And that changes my dynamics completely. Yeah. So if you can train yourself to be a little bit more fluid and exciting when you just talk without somebody there, then I think, again, you have a big advantage. And I think stories, if your content is shaped in a story, and a story that you've probably told many times before, then even when there's no audience there, it's going to come across a little more natural. And I'm going to be more engaged. So right away, just the style of it is a plus. And then if you have a relevant story, then we've got the killer combo. Because when it comes to interviews, both, in person, asynchronous, or, over the video, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Equally important. 50% on the content, 50% on the delivery. And you need both. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think basically, like you say, storyline. I think for a human, is always remember the stories rather than remember the contents, what we say.
Yeah.
If we put it in I so call like a memorable stories. Although it's not exciting contents, but I will remember that stories forever.
Yeah.
For that person.
And that goes back into the beginning of humanity, right? Like cavemans with the stories on the walls, right? I mean, just stories are just part of the human race, our DNA. And I think, again, in an Asian context, we've gone so much the other way on jobs. To just have a listing. What are my certifications? How many years of experience? You have this skill. And the problem is employers are asking for this too. So sometimes the candidates get tricked into falling into the trap to just giving what you think the employer wants. But I think, again, if you just think about what the recruiter is feeling and experiencing, and this is the first person that's going to watch this, they're sitting at night, maybe during the day, but probably at night, they got to bring these videos home. They're not that interesting, my man. It's not like, oh, I can't wait. Let's turn on Netflix and see what kind of candidate's going to be. It's like, oh my goodness, okay, I got to go through like 100 of these tonight. Oh shit, right? Like 2 minutes each. And you're trying to like hit fast forward. Maybe you're watching at double the speed, right? Like all this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So if you just come off a little bit different, all of a sudden you got my attention. Yeah. And that would be the style. And obviously that requires a little practice. If you don't do this every day, being able to tell a more interesting dynamic story to the camera, right, requires some practice.
Yeah, I think I need a lot of plannings because some of the questions come out with like, hey, it's stuck. They're like quite sudden. That it's not the questions that we normally plan.
Yeah. So give me some thoughts. What kind of curves did you get thrown recently?
One of the questions I think is quite surprised is that what have you done for this interview? What have you done or preparation for this interview?
Okay.
Just tell stories about that. 2 minutes. Yeah, basically it's like that. Yeah, I just told that. Yeah, one. I think before I applied this job, I went to talk to my career development team office, talk about these jobs, then they link me up with a former so-called analyst, former analyst of the company, and we talk about what's the culture, what's the job scope of that, then we understand about it, fits my value, then I apply it. I think thank God, then I have an interview, video interview, then I link up with my career development office again, have a mock interview, practice. Yeah, then I prepare for this interview. And yeah, basically I just did all the preparation just like that. Then I just went for the interview. So basically I just told the story about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you do in general when you get a question that you're not ready for? Because ideally, you want to never be caught off guard, right? And generally in behavioral-based interviews, usually the first rounds, most of the questions are pretty predictable. I'm very confident that, again, with all those employers you're talking about, very quite traditional, their processes are quite transparent. You can predict half the questions minimum.
Yeah.
If you're not, if like more than half the questions stump you, then you haven't done enough prep, right? But if they throw a curve like this one here, my advice is always to think about the things that you have prepared, and is there a way to kind of slowly take the answer to this question and get it into one of your prepared pitches so that you're not winging the whole thing, right? And so there's a little bit of art there of how to build the bridge subtly, but knowing that the end in mind is, hey, okay, this sounds like this question I got pretty prepared. How do I answer this question, but then quickly get it into my prepared thing, so then I'll be more comfortable and it's going to be more interesting and I'm not winging it. And this specific question, I think there is an easy one, right? This is kind of like question number 2. Why do you want to work for us? This is the how much do you love us? Right? But with a little specific variation, like what kind of work have you done? But the bigger question is really like, how into us are you? And if you know that, oh, I can kind of see what they're doing, well, you can kind of say, well, the journey started way back. I've been into you for quite some time. When I first read this, I saw you this, and I've been doing this kind of things. And the reason I want to work for you is because of this. I've been prepping this, I've been doing this, and all of a sudden now you get it back. A little bit of the new stuff, but a lot of the stuff that you already know what to say. And that way, again, it will, be better than winging the whole thing. So always have the end in mind. Yeah.
Sure.
Improv actually is very useful for this kind of training. A lot of guys teach improv in their classes for interviewing, right? Because it's a nice way to train the mind. Yeah. Of how to go from here to here really quickly, or going from there to there. When you're throwing something brand new, right? How do you go with it? Again, improv guys, they don't wing stuff. It's just they have a whole arsenal, and when they get something crazy, it's just how do I redefine that, right? And build the bridge back to my set pieces, right? Otherwise, again, it's going to be awkward. It's going to be a lot of,
Yeah, correct. It's just like quite surprised, then you got stunned. Then you don't. I can't say you don't know how to answer, but it's just that your information scramble around. You know how to structure it for the.
That's why you get it quickly to your set piece. So more set pieces then. I don't know how many set pieces you have ready to go, but again, for a standard 30-minute, you should have probably 5, 6 set pieces ready to go. And that should hopefully cover 80-90% of what they could throw at you. And then depending on what they throw at you, okay, I'm gonna use a set piece. I'll tweak it a little bit and go from here, right? Winging it is just really tricky. And winging it on camera is the absolute worst, right? Let me telling you, right? I mean, that's why I do the live stream. I do a little prep. Yeah, and then once my prep's done, I'm like, okay, I still got some time to kill. Okay, I need to wing it now. I'm like, oh, what am I gonna talk about, right? And then I try to go back to something that I have talked about, so that I'm not totally rambling. And then when you come, then it's a lot easier, right? Then it's much more interactive. But if I'm just doing it by myself, I'm like, right? So it takes practice.
Yeah, there's a difference when you talk. When you have video, not a video, we have a panel in front of a camera. It's easier to talk because we treat it like chit chat rather than just recordings. When a recording is just like DJ talking into the
yeah.
It's quite a different feel.
For sure. I mean, some people try to say, hey, just pretend there's someone there, right? Or if you've got, someone in your family with you, have them sit on the opposite side so it sounds like you're like talking to them at least. So I don't know if these tricks work. I've never tried them before. So if you feel uncomfortable, that could be one hack, right? Just have your partner, your sibling, your mom just sit behind the camera and just pretend I'm talking to you, mom, right? At least the eye contact is the key.
Yeah.
Just like when you're supposed to position your thing, I'm looking at this versus looking at you on the screen. That changes the dynamics completely too.
Yeah, correct.
But here's the good and the bad, right? You're getting some advanced practice, and you're getting clocking the hours. It's not going away, right? I mean, it's not like next year when we get the vaccine, we're gonna go back to this stuff. This stuff is gonna continue to happen.
Keep changing and keep changing. Yeah.
Did you have to do that for the admissions? For ASB? Did you guys have to do video stuff or not yet?
Yeah.
Oh, there was already. Yeah, see? The guys are already
Yeah.
adapting. I'm not surprised. I mean, of all the schools, your school would be very nimble to be able to integrate that. But I'm hearing that a lot too now, a lot of these video type of essays and stuff like that.
Yeah, a lot. I think most of MSc is just starting to have an essay. They not the cover letters anymore. They want an essay,
Yeah.
Just want to understand your thoughts about it and how well you do the research on their companies.
For sure. Well, I mean, again, the commitment is a big part of it, right? But in 2 minutes, you can't say that much. And it's not necessarily even the quantity of stuff. I mean, the quantity is part of it. But if you can tell a story of like I did a coffee chat with this one analyst and he was telling me all this crazy stuff, right? I mean, you can take one interaction and spin it like this was like best thing ever, right? Yeah. So it's finding that balance between quantity and quality. Right? Because
Yeah.
if you just do a listing of stuff, that's actually boring. I've done this, I've talked to so and so, I did this. I mean, that's nice, but again, it's not super memorable, and there are other guys that will do that. So if you can say, I've done this, and from him, I learned this, that led me to go to this guy, and there he told me that. Or I talked to 10, they all told me this. And one guy even, oh my goodness, now it's like, this guy's really into it, really into that kind of stuff. So find that balance.
Yeah.
You remember the 3 techniques I talked about when we had this workshop on storytelling? From the movies, I mentioned, like 3 general things, how to make the story a little more engaging.
Yeah, zoom in, zoom out, I still remember.
Yeah.
Techniques.
Zoom in and zoom out, change the POV,
Okay.
right? So take me behind the scenes into what you're thinking, but the ups and the downs, that's the killer one. The drama for sure gets people into this kind of stuff, right? So, yeah, add a little spice. Add a little spice for it. But, the most important thing, too, is to get the feedback from someone else, quite a few people before you do it, right?
Yeah.
So that when you walk into it, this is a story you've done quite a few times, and you're ready to go. You don't know how many times I've walked out of interviews, when I'm like, why did I do that? Well, I forgot to tell that part. I should have done this part. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, right? Because I just kind of casually walked into it. I kind of had my stories. I did my mapping, but I didn't really practice it out loud. And I just thought, oh, since I talk every day, it'll come to me when I have to get there. That is like the stupidest move, right? And I did that a few times early on, and I was just like, mistake.
Yeah, I agree.
Shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Those are the worst.
Yeah. Although you have all the points, but when it comes to life, you just can't talk about it sometimes. You'll miss out a lot of things.
Yeah. But with the practice, for sure. I mean, I don't know what live stream this is. This is probably number 6 or 7 I've done. The first few were brutal. Don't go watch. It was like kind of awkward. I don't even know what I was doing. Right? But now I feel a lot more comfortable. I know I kind of have a little bit of a formula of how I start. Right? So I'd like to think if you're watching it, it's a little bit more interesting.
I think I learned from you, so that's why I pick up. Just try to apply and try to understand how the process is. At least start from now, prepare for it. If not, I think you will get stung for me.
Yes.
That's how the video interview is. But you don't know how to respond.
Yeah. Well, again, I think these early, challenges, as long as you're doing the self-reflection, I'm glad you came on to chat with me just to kind of, bounce some ideas off and replay that in your mind so that, if you weren't as happy with it, you remember that and you take it to the next one, right? Because the worst is just kind of go, there's a one-off and next time it won't be that and you haven't really changed your prep. And then all of a sudden it comes again. It's like, that's the worst, right? And it's coming again, right? These guys, I mean, HireVue is probably one of the platforms. They're pretty well known, right? And everybody's adding this in. It doesn't cost a lot these days to do this, and the bandwidth is generally pretty good.
At least some of the companies, they invested, so they need to use it.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Once you bought it too, you got to use it, whether it's useful or not. I'm going to go and dig some more intel actually over the break if I can with the employers that I know that have to watch these things to kind of go like, is it adding anything extra, right? I have a feeling it helps a lot to weed out for sure, and it gives you data to cut, but I'm not sure it gives you that much more to help you make like good decisions, like, oh, this is the better one, right?
I think for me, my thought is that they just don't want to miss out candidates. You can collect all the candidates you have in the markets.
Yeah.
They just don't want to miss out. But like you say, if I'm doing the job to watch the video, it's quite boring.
I don't know. I used to, for a few schools that I was close to, they asked me to help them with admissions. Right. And so I used to read some of the essays and I was like, oh my goodness, thank goodness it's not my day job that I have to be like the admissions officer and read the paper ones. Right. Yeah. But I just can imagine watching the video ones. That's like, I know a little bit of that because one of the undergrad courses I used to teach here in Singapore, we would ask them to record actually pretty much like this. And we've been doing it for many years. Many years, because I can't sit there the whole time to do one-on-ones. We asked them to re-record it, and then I watch it and I grade them, And oh my goodness, like it's pretty tricky. 3 questions, 2 minutes each, right? And some people again very natural, but the average is it's pretty tricky. It's pretty tricky, just
Yeah,
like the higher view systems.
yeah, agree.
Cool.
Yeah,
So you
well,
guys almost done the semester?
not yet, not yet. I think January,
Oh,
January.
you go right up. There's no break for you don't get a little bit of extended break
We
for
have a winter
holidays?
break. Yeah, we have 2 weeks for Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Good. And where are you right now? Are you in KL?
I'm in camp. I'm in camp.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
How's it going there? Are you doing okay?
I'm just staying in the room. Just be careful. Yeah,
The MCOs are still in effect, right?
it's getting worse. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, not just you, not just you, right? If you follow the headlines, right, this Hong Kong Singapore travel bubble that got blown to bits, and
yeah.
Hong Kong numbers today are like at 100 and growing. It's like it's not good. It's
Not
not
good.
good, right?
Yeah,
I
fourth
don't like
wave for
these
them.
travel. Yeah, yeah. Right, there was this green lane travel with Malaysia, so I was like, hey, do you guys want me to come up? Because I'm actually really curious to see the new campus. I haven't had a chance to see the new campus. I had to drive around. Rhoda took me around the last time, which would have been like I guess 2019, and I saw it, but I was really keen to kind of step into it, right? I was like, you know what, I'm itching to kind of get back on the plane. I'll be willing to do all the pain in the ass, but like, don't do it. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll do it when I'm done.
Oh, you just need to wait.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
next year
done.
maybe.
I've done once.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you did it once.
Yeah. Where. Yeah, I came back to here from Singapore, so I got quarantined for two
Yeah,
weeks. Just
yeah,
experience all these things.
yeah.
All the ECU.
Okay, you're right. I was too eager for the wrong stupid reasons. Yeah.
If you got an award, maybe you need to think about it.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you join me tonight. Yeah.
Good.
Anything else you want to chat about? Right?
There's one last question. I
Yeah.
think it's about LinkedIn chat. I think one of my problems is that how to maintain the chat things. I think it's not easy. I think some of the people is that you don't know, but you just try. Again, I just put away, try the luck. But it really helps you. They really talk to you. They give advice. Explain their job scope, everything. How about their companies? I think about maintaining that relationship is a quite complicated, quite complicated.
Okay. Well, I'll say a couple words on that to end tonight's show. This is a good question. Well, look here's the first thing. Let's step back to first principles. Right. LinkedIn is great to find people initially, to do the research. Type in the role that you're interested in, the company, the location, and boom, you find the people's names here. But if you're gonna shoot them a note right after that, I would suggest you take a step back and like, don't do it. Don't do it. This is the target. This is the end in mind. Work backwards and figure out, okay, this is the guy I want to eventually talk to. Who do I know that can get me there? Who can
Okay.
give me the intro? Who can give me the warm lead? Because the warm lead significantly changes both the percentage chance that they'll respond, which is problem number one, they may not
Yeah.
respond.
Yeah.
But let's say they do respond, it increases the quality of the response, knowing that there's some common trusted vetting process in between the two of us versus you just found me and wrote me, right? And I would, say that today maybe people are slightly more open minded to the cold thing, given COVID, and people are trying to be sympathetic and help out. But again, you're most likely, like you're starting to realize, you get maybe the initial chit chat and back and forth, but after that, like then it goes cold, and then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, what do we do from that? So,
Yeah.
to try to preempt that problem, let's go back and find better referrals into these original people. Right?
Understand.
Because if
Sure.
you have that, I think it's not as difficult. There's still a challenge, but it's not as difficult. So always try to do that. Get a closer introduction to them.
Sure.
But let's say you even do that, and then you have that initial chit chat, right? How can you keep it going? Well, look, I don't know how much of a chit chat you'll get. If you get a chance to go live with them, it'll be most 30 minutes. If you're just trading messages back, you'll get a volley of a little bit, but even then, the amount of content time wise is what, 5-10 minutes of content perhaps back and forth. So I just like to think that even though you might get half an hour with them, there's still probably tons of things you'd be curious
Yeah.
about this person that you want to follow up with. And that's probably the spirit of where I want those future interactions to be about. Continue to be about them, right? That should have been the premise going into the first one anyways. You don't want to talk to this guy just because they work for X firm or they're doing Y job. It's because they're doing X, Y, and Z, but you're really curious about them too. Their professional life, their personal life, their journey, their education path, like everything about them screams like, I want to get to know this guy a bit better. Because if that's the starting point, then I actually think, again, keeping it going isn't hard because there's just too many things you probably want to ask this person about, and they're going to feel that genuineness, right? And you just spread that out over time because, again, half an hour can only get so much, so let me keep a little bit back, and then there's a follow-up, and then so on and so on, right?
Yeah.
How much time between follow-ups? I mean, that's probably one thing you need to be a little careful about. You can't be too soon, otherwise you're like, hey, it's me again, right? Yeah. But if you wait a little bit too long, then obviously time's passing, and then, out of sight, out of mind. So for me, I think you're looking at the earliest 3 weeks out from the original chit chat. I probably think 3 to 6 week range, right? One and a month, at most 2 months. You don't want to, be like, hey, remember me from 3 months ago? I feel like that's a little too far off, right? And along that way, in that 3 to 6 week window, hopefully you've been talking to other people, that have maybe similar backgrounds to this person or in that same industry because you're trying to, deepen this and also broaden your understanding. So that way, all this intel you're gathering from other chats, you can then use to kind of get this guy back to the table. Kind of say, hey, right? When you sat down with me a couple weeks ago, John, that was so great. You told me this. And since then, by the way, I just want to update you. I've talked to the A, B, C. I've talked to 5 other guys. And they told me some extra stuff, but I'm a little confused. Hey, do you think we can meet again? I'd love to get your expert thoughts on that one. Because, the first time you give me so much good stuff, right? You got a little flattery, right? Yeah? But make the person feel valued. Make them feel like you really value their opinion, their time, their perspective. You really want to hear about them, not because you're the only guy I know, or you just happen to be the guy, right? Make them feel special. And if you can do that, I think it gets easier.
Understand. So it's not that I'm the person that just go to get what I want.
Yeah. I mean, if you think it's about information gathering and you're just take, right? Then obviously if they feel like I'm a stepping stone for you. Okay, I just happen to be a guy who's doing something that you're interested in, and I happen to be the only guy that responded probably to your chat, so okay, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to get that type bond, right? But start with a better warm lead, work a little bit harder at that if you need to, right? And then, ask the smart questions, show them that you genuinely care. Try to connect, especially in that for 30 minutes, on multiple levels. Not just on the professional level, that would be the obvious one, but maybe something a little bit more than that. Is it at a cultural level? Is it about something like interest, a hobby, their education, whatever it may be, right? Because the more levels you can connect with them, the more likely it's going to be that they'll want to continue to keep in touch with you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Agreed.
1 to 2 is the biggest jump. Yeah, but if you can get to 2, 3 becomes easier. 3 becomes easier. And if you get to 3, then 4 is almost a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Because to get to 3, it means 2 and 1 had to be good, right?
Agreed.
That just has to be it. Yeah. And then 4, I mean, hello, 3 times. If I haven't figured out you're an idiot after 3 times, like something's wrong with me, right? So the fact that I'm still spending time with you must mean that I must think you're interesting. I don't feel like you're burdening me. A lot of people say, oh, but I feel like I'm a burden. What am I going to talk about, right? Yeah. It won't be that way if you ask smart questions, aka questions that you don't just ask anybody, and better yet, questions that you feel this guy because of their background, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I want to approach based on my projects. Maybe just seek for their advice.
Start there first.
Yeah.
Start there first, wherever you think the common ground is. Right? Look at these people more deeply, ask around to get a little bit more intel on them, get that warm lead there, and then see where it goes from there, right? Sometimes some of the connections have nothing to do with work. Sometimes it's about something really different there, right? Or sometimes it will be just a work-related conversation. That's okay too. That's okay too.
I think it's just like making a new friends. Sometimes it's just through a same sports interest, or maybe just
sure. I mean, especially if they're close to age to you, then that's a nice move too. Right, and that's why I always suggest people don't just shoot up and try to get CEOs to come chat with you. Right, start with someone at least a little bit closer to your age, maybe a year or 2 ahead of you at most, and again, go and just connect with them multiple times. Right, but showing the general interest is key. If you're very genuinely interested in them, and that's that subtle line that some people don't understand. right? They say, oh, but I am showing interest in you. No, no, the way you're talking to me, the way you wrote me, the way you ask, it sounds like you're just asking any consultant, since that's my background. It doesn't sound like you're interested in Jonathan Kwan. You're just interested in a management consultant, and I happen to be the one today. And you keep talking to me like I'm a management consultant, not Jonathan Kwan. So if you can get down there, then we're good. Then we're good. Right?
Agree.
Let me know how it goes.
Sure.
Yeah? Come back
Sure.
in the new
Well,
year.
I'll update you. Yeah.
We keep doing this, right?
Sure. We'll keep practicing. And
Okay.
keep doing it. Thanks, John.
Good to see you, my man. Good night.
See you too. Good night.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, really exciting to have another guest join us. If you're interested in doing that, every Sunday we'll be here 9 p.m. You can just join the Zoom meeting, just like you saw my guest today with that stuff, and then go from there. If you want to even book a time with me in advance, right? Say, hey, I want to make sure I get some chat with you. Can I have some time with you next week? Reach out, hit me up on the chat. Lots of different ways on my socials. And I'd be happy to make sure we have some dedicated time. Okay? So with that in mind, I'm almost at the 1 hour mark. I don't want to keep you hanging on too long. Such a pleasure. I hope wherever in the world you are listening to this, that you're staying safe. And we'll catch you next week, which will be December. Can you believe that? I'm not really sure where this year has gone, right? There's been a lot of craziness. But I can't believe this. It's December with just a couple more weeks till we flip it to 2021. All right. Until then, cheers.